Now that we live in an age where we're constantly inundated with media and art, it's easy to forget that the things that we consume inevitably change us. When I read a new book or a new article, I may view the world a little bit differently. When I watch a new movie, TV show, or YouTube video, I might view myself or the people around me a little bit differently. We are changed as we consume. With that notion in mind, I think it's important to not only note this change, but to analyze it and reflect on it. To understand how we are changed or affected by what we read, watch, or listen to. I find a lot of joy in this act of self-reflection, and I wanted to share a moment of that with you. I also feel that connecting what you consume to the larger context of your life enrich your experience overall. And on top of that, I think highlighting the different things that people glean from different stories, movies, videos, articles make for the most interesting conversations. So today I'm gonna share that process with you by analyzing a book that I just finished reading, which was Babel, an Arcane History by RF Kuang. After reading Babel, I felt immediately changed by the story. I felt really connected to the main character and how he sees the world, and also how he was changed throughout his story. Although I may never and have never faced the same trials and tribulations as the main character in this book, the way that he dealt with power structures, cultural identity, and language really struck a chord in me, and I wanted to share that with you. Babel is a historical fantasy / dark academia that's set in an alternative 19th century Oxford. It follows the story of Robin Swift, a Chinese orphan that's brought to Britain in order to be trained and work at the prestigious translation institute known as Babel. Here, translation and language are not just academic pursuits, but actually the very source of magic. Kuang blends historical context with a unique magic system that touches on themes of colonialism, identity, and resistance. This novel is lush and evocative, which is typical for novels from RF Kuang, but it really pulls you into the world of academia while also unveiling complex power dynamics. If you love books that challenge you to think and feel deeply, then I think you'll really love Babel. Without giving too much away, Robin's journey takes him through the tumultuous life at Babel, where he forms deep bonds with his fellow students, but also faces the harsh realities of an institution built on exploitation. It's a story that really kept me hooked from start to finish, and it's filled with these twists and turns and these profound moments of reflection. The novel begins with Robin Swift's tragic childhood in Canton, where he's orphaned during a cholera outbreak. He's rescued by the mysterious Professor Lovell, and Robin is taken to England, where he's groomed to become a translator at Babel, which is the heart of translation and magic. At Babel, Robin finds himself part of a group of elite students who wield the power of silverworking. This form of magic harnesses the lost meaning between two languages during the act of translation, allowing the wielder to create powerful magical effects. However, when Robin becomes entangled in the workings of Babel, he begins to see the dark underbelly of the institution and its role in perpetuating British colonialism. As we know, Kuang doesn't shy away from exploring difficult topics, making Babel both a compelling fantasy as well as a poignant social commentary. One of my favorite parts of the book are the supporting characters, such as Rami, Victor, and Letty. Each one of them add nuance to the story, bringing their own unique perspectives and struggles. Their interactions with Robin highlight the complexities of friendship and loyalty in a world where power dynamics are constantly at play. One of my favorite aspects of Babel is its magic system, known as silverworking. This system is based on the principle that there is power in the act of translation. When a word or phrase is translated from one language to another, something is always lost in translation. Silverworking captures this lost meaning and uses it to create magical effects. For example, if you were to translate a phrase from Chinese to English, the subtle nuances and cultural connotations that don't carry over to English can be harnessed and inscribed onto a piece of silver. The silver then becomes a magical artifact that can produce a variety of effects, depending on the words used. Silverworking is not just a clever plot device, but it serves as a metaphor for the themes of language, power, identity that permeate the novel. The act of translation becomes both a form of empowerment as well as oppression. reflecting on the dynamics between colonialism and cultural extraction. In the world of Babel, silverworking is a closely guarded secret, controlled by those in power. The control over knowledge and language exercised by colonial forces has been seen throughout history. My favorite part of this magic system is the power that is lost in translation when going from one language to another. To connect this to the Hawaiian language, we have a concept called kauna, which means a hidden meaning, as in Hawaiian poetry, concealed references as to a person, thing, or place, or words with double meanings that completely change the literal meaning to something else entirely. Knowledge and understanding of kauna is deeply rooted in cultural context, which is passed down through generations. Simply learning the Hawaiian language is not enough to understand the nuances of kauna. With the history of suppression for Hawaiian language and Hawaiian culture in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, this knowledge was nearly lost. While I was reading Babel, I couldn't help but draw these comparisons between the concept of silverworking and the Hawaiian language and its history of suppression. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the Hawaiian language was systematically banned in schools and in public life as part of the broader colonial agenda to control Native Hawaiians and assimilate them into Western culture. To provide some additional context, in the late 18th and early 19th centuries, Western explorers and missionaries arrived in the Hawaiian Islands and brought new technologies, religions, and ways of life. In 1893, a group of American and European businessmen, with the support of the US government, orchestrated the overthrow of Queen Liliuokalani, the last reigning monarch of Hawaii. This led to the establishment of a provisional government and, eventually, the illegal annexation of Hawaii by the United States in 1898. During this period, Hawaiian language was systematically suppressed. The banning of Hawaiian language in schools and in public life had profound impacts on Hawaiian identity and culture. It wasn't until the Hawaiian Renaissance of the 1970s that efforts to revive language and culture and reclaim cultural heritage gained significant momentum. Today, the preservation of the Hawaiian language are seen as vital acts of cultural resistance and empowerment. Much like the lost meaning in translation in the novel, the banning of Hawaiian language resulted in the loss of cultural nuances, traditional knowledge, and identity. Language is a vessel for culture, and its suppression can have devastating effects on a community's sense of self and continuity. A powerful anecdote that I learned about in school during this period involves Queen Liliuokalani herself. After the overthrow, she was imprisoned in her own palace, which is Iolani Palace, under house arrest, and despite the restrictions, her people found ingenious ways to communicate with her. They would wrap the daily newspaper around flowers and smuggle them to her. These newspapers often contained hidden messages or kauna and updates about the state of her people. In her determination to communicate with her people, Queen Liliuokalani wrote 7 songs during her imprisonment, the most popular of which is Aloha Oi. The prison songs of Queen Liliuokalani provide a rare glimpse into the life and perspective of a queen who is dethroned and imprisoned, yet able to communicate with and inspire her subjects by way of her compositions. This act of defiance and solidarity highlights the resilience and ingenuity of the Hawaiian people in the face of oppression. In Babel, the magic derived from translation highlights how language can be both a tool of control and a source of resistance. Similarly, the revival and preservation of Hawaiian language today are acts of reclaiming identity and resisting historical forces that sought to erase it. To wrap up my thoughts, Babel is a harrowing story of colonialism, cultural extraction, resistance, and cultural identity. I felt really deeply connected to these themes, and relating these themes back to my own experience as an Indigenous person made my reading experience so much more impactful. I encourage you to highlight your own life experiences when reflecting on the things you consume. How have your favorite books impacted your life? How have they changed the way that you view the world or yourself? How has your own experience, your own life informed your reading? I'd love to hear your answers to these questions in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you found this comparison between a historical fantasy to Hawaiian history and culture interesting. Thank you so much for your time and attention. As I always say, time and attention are the most valuable things we have, so I appreciate you sharing even the smallest bit of yours with me. And I will see you next time.